Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I headed out on a Lake Erie to catch a limit of walleye using what I consider to be the laziest method of fishing there is. When the conditions are right, you can get set up using this method and then just sit back and wait for the fish. But there are some tricks to this method you'll need to know about. So in this video, I'll go over the method, show you those tricks, and show you the equipment I use to catch these walleye. So stick around. So the method that I'm going to show you can only be done in certain conditions, and I'm going to tell you what those conditions are in just a minute. The beauty of this method is that once you get all of your lines set, you don't have to worry about running into other boats. You can literally just sit back and wait for a fish to bite. Now in this video, I'm fishing on Lake Erie, and while walleye is the target species, many other species can be caught using this same method. So in this method, I'm going to essentially drift using bottom bouncers and night crawler harnesses. But it's not just a matter of throwing lines down and waiting for a bite. There are a few tricks that you need to know about to make this method work effectively. First, you'll need a bit of wind. This will provide your boat with not only some speed, but also some wave action that will serve to bounce the bottom bouncer on the bottom of the lake. This is not a method that works on days when the lake is calm. I found that the ideal wind conditions for drifting like this are between 10 and 20 miles per hour. And of course, wind direction plays a role in this as well. With that said, when fishing the Great Lakes, these conditions are on the borderline where things start to get a bit rough. So as always, safety first, and be sure that your boat and equipment are made to handle this type of weather and wave action. Now on this particular day that I'm fishing, the winds were between 10 and 12 miles per hour from the west. And being that this was in the western basin of Lake Erie, there wasn't much fetch to increase the waves, so I wouldn't try this method if the waves were much smaller than they were on this day. If I were to be fishing another 10 miles east, it would likely have been quite a bit choppier and the conditions would have been ideal. But regardless, just make sure, first and foremost, that you're fishing in safe conditions. The second thing you're going to need are bottom bouncers. A bottom bouncer is a weight that is molded to a wire bent at a 90-degree angle. The weighted branch is intended to walk along the bottom of the lake bed, while the horizontal branch is made to attach to your bait. The loop that's located at the center of the bottom bouncer is made to attach to your main line. And one of the best baits to use with this method is a night crawler harness. Night crawlers are a great bait for walleye, and the colored beads and spinner blade on the harness help to attract fish, especially in the dark conditions that walleye live in. Next, you're going to need a rod that can handle the weight of the bottom bouncers that you're using with enough tip action to lift the bottom bouncer fairly aggressively off of the bottom with each bounce. The size of these bottom bouncers that I use range from 2 to 4 ounces, and I like to use the lightest bottom bouncer I can get away with and still get good bouncing action on the bottom. So the rod that you use will need to be strong enough to handle this range of weights. As far as the reel goes, it really just depends on the type of rod you're using. Pair a reel up with the rod that gives you the best bouncing action. On my boat, I like to use 8.5-foot trolling rods with medium action. I've paired these up with some level wind reels. These are the same reels that I use to troll with when conditions are calmer. So this gives me flexibility to change tactics if wind conditions change. I can easily go from bottom bouncing to trolling in a matter of a few minutes. The next thing you're going to need are some rod holders on your boat. This will allow you to set multiple lines without having to hold the rods. Start by attaching your crawler harnesses to the appropriately sized bottom bouncer for the conditions that you're in. Then attach the bottom bouncer to the swivel at the end of your main line. Now bait up the crawler harness with a fresh night crawler and you're ready to go. Next, drop the bottom bouncer down to the bottom on the side of the boat that's catching the wind. Once it's down there, set it in a rod holder that's tipped at a 45-degree angle from the boat. Now here's where the adjustment comes in. As the boat drifts with the wind, the bottom bouncer will be pulled away from the boat and lifted up off the bottom. Let out enough line to where the rod tip lifts the bottom bouncer off of the bottom with each wave crest and drops it back down with an aggressive thump in each wave trough. This may take some playing around with, but the idea is to get a really good sort of jigging action with the bait. If the wind conditions are strong enough, you may have to change to heavier bottom bouncer to get the bait from getting too horizontal, which would eliminate that good bounce you're looking for and just start to drag the bottom. Once you've adjusted this for the conditions that you're fishing and are getting a good bouncing action, just leave the rod in the rod holder and wait for a fish. Now you can set up as many rods as your boat will hold and that you can fish legally. I found that about 3 feet between each rod is ideal in order to keep them from tangling up. Generally speaking, I'll put a couple of rods off the back of the boat and several more along the side of the boat that's facing the wind. I call this the laziest way to catch walleye because once your lines are set, you just sit back and wait. The beauty of this method is that there's no need to steer and worry about where your lines are relative to other boats. And because you're just drifting, there's no engine noise to scatter the fish. To me, this makes for a much more peaceful and enjoyable day on the water. Another bonus to this type of fishing is that it'll catch many species. This is great especially for families or people that don't get to fish very often. This method will catch everything from white perch to yellow perch and sheephead to catfish. And when the fish are thick, the action is fast and furious. One tip is that once you catch walleye, you want to make sure you're marking these locations on your GPS. If you move away from fish, simply pull up lines and run back to the start of the drift to drift back through. And that's all there is to it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. And if you have other methods or favorite ways to catch walleye on the big lakes, feel free to drop those in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Nice one.